Okay, so today we're diving into something that's been making waves for a while now.
Waves. I'd say it's more like a tsunami.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's probably more accurate.
It really is. The evolution of the internet from Web 1 to Web 3. We're going to try to break it down for you.
Yeah, because let's be honest, sometimes it feels like you need a PhD just to understand what people are talking about.
Absolutely. So many new terms and concepts being thrown around.
Exactly, which is why we're taking a deep dive into it today.
And we found a really interesting source for this, by the way.
Oh, right, an Italian podcast that uses this analogy of learning a language.
Yeah, and I love that because it really is like that.
It totally is. The more you immerse yourself, the more you start to understand the nuances.
Exactly. So think of this deep dive as your language lesson for the internet.
Perfect. So let's go back to the very beginning, Web 1.
Ah, the good old days, the late 80s and early 90s.
1989 to be precise, right?
Yeah.
When Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web.
That's right, and it became publicly available in 1991.
So picture this.
Yeah.
You dial up to the internet.
With that lovely screeching sound.
Oh yeah, the dial-up modem. And finally, you get online.
And what do you see? Static pages, tons of text, and maybe a few images if you're lucky.
It was like browsing through digital brochures.
Exactly. A very basic read-only format.
And navigation. Forget about it.
You had those early browsers like Netscape Navigator and Internet
I
Explorer.
remember those. And finding anything was a real treasure hunt.
Oh, tell me about it. No Google to save the day back then.
We had things like the Yahoo directory, right?
Yes. Actual people manually categorizing websites.
Can you imagine that now?
It's mind-boggling the amount of information we have at our fingertips today.
Totally. So in those days, what kind of websites were people even visiting?
Well, I think online encyclopedias, early company websites.
Oh, and those personal pages.
Yes, remember those? People sharing their hobbies and interests.
With a very simple HTML code, if I remember correctly.
You got it. It was a very different landscape.
So what changed? How did we go from those static pages to the dynamic internet we know today?
That's where Web 2 comes in, and it all started around the early 2000s.
Yeah, around 2004, things started to shift, didn't they?
They did. Suddenly, we had platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Wikipedia emerging.
Game changers, for sure.
Absolutely. These platforms were all about user-generated content.
People could finally create and share their own stuff.
It was a huge shift from just consuming information to actively participating.
It was like the internet finally became interactive.
Exactly. We went from read-only to read-write.
And that opened up so many possibilities.
Social media exploded, connecting people in ways we'd never seen before.
Facebook became the digital town square.
Blogs gave everyone a voice.
And YouTube, well, it changed the way we consume video content forever.
But this shift to Web 2 also had its downsides.
Right, like the rise of those massive tech companies.
Google, Amazon, Facebook, they became incredibly powerful.
They controlled so much data, so much information.
And that raised a lot of concerns about privacy.
Absolutely. Our data was being collected, analyzed, and sometimes even misused.
It became a trade-off, the convenience of these platforms for our personal information.
Which brings us to Web 3, the latest iteration of the internet.
This one's all about decentralization.
Right. Taking power away from those big tech companies.
Raising it back to the users.
Using blockchain technology.
Exactly. Blockchain is like this distributed ledger that everyone can see.
No single entity controls it.
It's transparent, secure, and tamper-proof.
So imagine this. Your data is no longer stored on Facebook's servers.
It's spread across this decentralized network.
You own your data. You control it.
And if someone wants to use it, they have to ask your permission.
And maybe even pay you for it.
Exactly. And a whole new way of thinking about data ownership.
And it's not just about data.
Web3 is also about new economic opportunities.
Cryptocurrencies, NFTs, the metaverse.
It's a whole new digital economy emerging.
And it's pretty exciting, right?
It is. But we also need to be cautious.
What do you mean?
Well, decentralization sounds great in theory, but what if it just creates new power structures?
That's a good point. We've seen that happen before.
Exactly. So we need to be critical and think about the potential pitfalls.
Like who controls the blockchain?
And are these new platforms truly decentralized?
It's important to ask these questions.
Because Web3 is still in its early stages.
Platforms like Ethereum, Decentraland, and OpenSea are paving the way.
But the future is still uncertain.
It's an evolution, a journey we're all on together.
And we've come a long way from those static pages of Web 1.
To the interactive but centralized world of Web 2.
And now we're stepping into this uncharted territory of Web 3.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much the internet has changed.
and how much it will continue to change in the coming years.
So what does this all mean for the average person?
That's the big question, right?
Will we truly have more control over our data?
Will we see new economic opportunities emerge?
Or will new gatekeepers arise?
It's a future we're all shaping through the choices we make online.
That's such an important point to remember.
We have a say in how this all unfolds.
So what do you think?
Where do you see the internet heading?
Will Web3 live up to its promises?
It's something worth pondering as we continue to navigate this ever-evolving digital landscape.
And who knows what the next chapter will bring.
Only time will tell.
But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an exciting ride.
Buckle up.
That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening
We'll see you next time.
with another fascinating topic.
Until then, keep exploring.
And stay curious.
Bye.
Bye for now.